when I started my journey teaching abroad, when I came into the UK, when I started teaching, when I was about
Okay.
going into the career of teaching, I searched for some information about going into teaching, but I didn't get which made my first day exciting, and I was also nervous. And my first day was actually interesting. So, guys, this is why I have brought someone here today to come and tell us. He's a permanent teacher in the UK, to come and tell us some of the things we need to know about teaching abroad, about teaching in the UK, challenges. We all know there is no job that doesn't have its own downside. So challenges he has faced and how he has overcome these challenges. So guys, I'll let him introduce himself, and please like, share, and subscribe to this channel. Meanwhile, my name is Omawumi. If this is your first time here, and I'm a licensed teacher in the UK. I'm a supply teacher. So I'll let him introduce himself, and then we can dive into the video. You're welcome. Thanks for coming to my channel today, Mr. Gideon.
It's my pleasure. It's my pleasure to be here. And to start with, I want to say thank you for the opportunity given to me today to, be live on your show to, tell the whole world about how teaching in the UK looks like, and the
Yeah,
opportunity to also express myself, to have that privilege to help others who are looking forward and
yeah,
anticipating to, getting on board into teaching in the UK permanently and fully. To
yeah.
start with, I would say my name is Edmund Gideon. I'm a certified and licensed teacher in the UK. I'm a science teacher, and
Mm,
I got into teaching less than 2 years ago. And I think um, with my vast experience and lucid experience contribution I've got into the global world of teaching before migrating to the UK, helps me to, at least adapt to the new environment I met here and to be
yeah.
able to, survive within the system. So thank you for bringing me here.
You're welcome, Mr. Gideon. Thank you for coming to my channel. So I'll ask this first question. How was your first day like? Because like I said, mine was interesting. I started as a cover supervisor though. So it
Okay.
was, and I would say, we will still get to that. I would say teaching back home in Nigeria, because I'm a Nigerian, Mr. Gideon is also a Nigerian, is not even quite, is way different
Yeah.
from teaching here in the UK. So how was your first day like?
All right. Just like you said, it was a very funny day because just like I said, I've been teaching since when I was in Nigeria. I'm a licensed teacher in Nigeria, and
Okay.
by the grace of God, I happens to be a director of a particular school. I
Wow.
founded myself, and so I thought, with all the vast experience I've got in Nigeria, it would be a smooth and easy ride for me that
Mm,
first day. And then when I got to the school, I it was something entirely different from
yeah.
what I've been having from the past. So
Yeah.
it's a totally different, I can't just say it's an opposite side, but it's a
Mm,
different environment, not something so close at all. There's this gap,
mm.
and that is so wide and very clear. The difference is very clear. That's what I can just say on that.
Yeah, yeah, you're very right. Because I could remember my first day as cover. So it was in Lincoln because I stayed in Lincolnshire before coming to
Okay.
Cambridgeshire. So I was placed in a class, and then I couldn't, back home we still get to the comparison now. Back home, you know how the classroom management is, but here
Yeah,
it
yeah,
was even my
yeah,
students that were telling me, okay, miss, you have to say 3, 2, 1, and then they'll
yeah,
keep
yeah,
quiet.
yeah, yeah, yeah. My first day at work, working as a supply teacher or a cover supervisor, was a bit challenging also because just like I do tell people that whatsoever profession you're doing in this country, one of the best things to work on is your time management. It's
Yeah.
something very crucial and something very important because I remembered my first day working as a cover supervisor. I got to the school late, a bit late. According to the email I received from my agency, I was asked to resume to the school of primary assignment for that day for 8:30, and I got there around 8:55. I was
Oh,
thinking, just like we do have in African schools, Nigeria to be precise, assemblies and things we do. at the
Yeah.
beginning of each school day, and I thought it would be the same in the UK, and unfortunately, it wasn't when I got to the school, and I was told that the first lesson I was supposed to have had started already. So, my first experience
Wow.
coupled with getting to the school late and then getting to the class,
Mm.
seeing students who can intimidate you regardless of your height, your body shape, and how good you can
Yes.
speak.
Mm-hmm.
How I don't care. They are ready to intimidate you, regardless of who you are. So it was very intimidating and very challenging that day. And I hope during this interview we can be able to talk about the difference between the Nigerian school and the schools we've got
Yeah.
here, because there's a wide gap and a lot of differences between the way teaching is being done in Nigeria and the way it is being done here.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yes, we can just dive into it since we're already talking about it. So, because it's part of what we're going to talk about, anyways. Like now, if we can
Okay.
compare teaching back home in Nigeria and then teaching here in the UK, I'll just say teaching abroad.
I'm going to start with the fact that there are different schools, there are different categories of schools here, rather than what
Okay.
we have in Nigeria, where we just have secondary schools. Now, here we
Yeah.
have offsetted schools, we have
Mhm.
normal schools, we have alternative schools. So,
Okay.
we must understand the differences before we know how to compare and contrast and how we just
Mm.
suppose Nigerian school and the school in the UK. Now, I
Okay.
teach in a normal high school, and to start with, the teaching philosophy and the teaching pedagogy is different.
Mm.
Here we have students with different abilities. I know we have the same in Nigeria, but there is
Yeah.
no platform to teach students with different abilities in Nigeria. For example,
Mm.
here you have students with ADHD, students with
Yes.
um, dyslexia, students with a
Yeah.
lot of different learning disabilities. And then on
Mm.
their register, you can see FSPA, FPSA,
Yeah.
just to tell you the categories they belong to according
Lovely.
to
Yeah.
their learning disabilities. You get what I'm trying to
Mm.
say? So we
Yes.
have those who you can manage their behavior using some certain ways. And that's why every student here, let me say every lesson you teach here, the students in that particular lesson have something we call class on a page, sorry. The class on a page is
Okay.
to tell you the name of the students, how you can help the students in the class, the students'
Yeah.
need. You get what I'm trying to
Mm-hmm.
say? They have sitting
Yes.
plans, and the sitting plans are
Yeah.
orchestrated in such a way that it is planned to help students with different abilities to be able to learn better. And moreover,
Yes.
here we've got students with PSP with one another. Some students cannot sit
Mm.
with each other. You know,
Yes.
in Nigeria, we don't have all these things, and it's really
We don't.
affecting us. Really affecting us
Yeah.
because you put a student who has an ADHD diagnosis together with other students who haven't got any learning disabilities, and we expect the
Mm.
same outcome from them. And there's no
Yeah.
proper awareness as to
Mm-hmm.
each student's differences, each
Mm.
student's needs and abilities in Nigeria.
Yeah.
I was talking to someone recently and I was saying, many of us back in Nigeria, we might not even know we've got ADHD. We
Yeah.
might not know we've
Yeah.
got some learning disabilities. And then we are being beaten by our teachers because they thought we are not listening to instructions, because they thought we
Okay.
are disrupting lessons. Meanwhile,
Mm.
it is something that is reflex. We can't control it ourselves
Mhm.
because it's a learning disabilities we are being born with. But because of the
Uh,
naivety of the Nigerian educational system, we couldn't
mm.
decode this particular problem in students. And it is
Yeah.
really affecting Nigerian education that despite how intellectual and despite how good we are intellectually, we are not producing that result we ought to
Mm.
produce despite all the resources and despite how well and how good God has created us educationally.
Mhm. Yeah.
So that is why students with just little help here will do better than students in Nigeria who was given all lots of textbooks to read, many subjects to cover, a
Yeah.
different, teachers doing different things, no philosophy, no teaching policy, no guideline, no behavior management. and
Yeah.
all sorts, which is really affecting Nigeria education system. I wouldn't
Yes.
have been able to know this if I haven't transited into the
Mm.
UK teaching methods too. I hope
Yeah.
you get what I'm trying to say. Because I
Yes.
think the problem we have in Nigeria is we do not separate being sound, being intellectually sound from having teaching philosophy. And I'm going to
Mm.
explain that. We believe everyone who graduates with a first class have this innate ability to teach students to understand better.
Mm.
And it is different here.
Yeah.
A British school would prefer to employ someone who has got a good teaching philosophy than someone who has
Yes.
got a good subject knowledge. Your
Mm-hmm.
subject knowledge is not enough to teach a class. And that is why many Nigerians are failing many schools interview here in the UK. You know,
Mm.
sometimes when they are being called for interview, when they are being shortlisted for interviews, they keep being rejected despite performing so well during their
Yeah.
micro teaching. Because
Yes.
for any interview here, you'll be asked to teach
Yeah.
for at least 30 minutes. And then some people will tell me after I've done so well during my micro teaching and during my interview, I was able to answer all questions, and yet I
Mm.
wasn't given the job. It is
Yeah.
because you have the subject knowledge, but you
Yeah.
don't have the teaching pedagogy. And
Yes.
every school in the UK will accept someone with a good and a sound teaching pedagogy
Yeah.
than someone who's got subject knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
So here, there's a teaching philosophy, there's a teaching pedagogy, and there's behavioral management, which
Mm.
encapsulates your class management, how you carry your students along in your lessons, how they are not isolated, and how you are able to meet the needs of all students with different abilities.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So now, when I was employed here to start working as a science teacher, I thought I understand physics, I know biology. I've been teaching A levels since when I was in Nigeria, and I can teach physics. I've taught so many students to pass Cambridge exams, international exams, physics, chemistry, biology. I believe when I get to the class, come on, all the students we know they've got a special teacher who can teach them all things. And I discovered I was useless in lessons
Mm.
because I haven't understood teaching pedagogy and teaching philosophy. And
Mm-hmm.
thank God for the school I work, there's something called CPD training here.
Yeah.
CPD training is to take you through how to teach in the UK. And that is why they have a platform they call ETC. So
Yeah.
some of us might not have the opportunity to pass through ETC because our QTS has exempted us from into introductory period during our teaching in the UK.
Period. Yeah.
But I felt it is very important because the ETC will let you understand the hooks and cranning part of everything the teaching in the UK encapsulates. So
Mm.
when I got to the lesson, I will explain to all the students, and I noticed they are not getting what I'm saying. They don't understand. And
Mm.
then until I pass through the CPD training, I'm currently on a professional course called Leading Teaching, which is MPQ. It is a
Yeah.
program like another master's program, which is being brought about by National Institute of Teaching in the UK. And when
Okay.
I started that program again, I got to know that I haven't even understood 30% of teaching philosophy in the UK. Not even in the
Mm.
UK. It works. That is how I think all students worldwide should be taught. Because
Yeah.
it makes teaching easier and it makes assimilation very easy too.
Yes.
So in my CPD training, I was given steps on how to teach to make sure all students understand, irrespective of their learning disabilities and all the students' abilities.
Mm.
And that is why here in the UK, all students are not brought together. They
Mm-mm.
have
Yeah.
sects. You can have
Yes.
10 sects 1, 10 sects 2. These
Mm-hmm.
sects keep going downwards according to the intellectual capacity of students. So if you are very good intellectually, you be put in 10 sect 1. I'm just using year 10 for an example. And
Yeah.
then
Yeah.
that is to tell you, okay, if I'm teaching 10 sect 7, they need more help. I can't be teaching them at a fast pace as I'll be teaching 10 sect 1.
Yes. Yes.
So I need to break information into chunks into chunks, using live realities to explain abstract science, such that the one in the lower abilities can be able to understand the same thing people in set one had understood. I don't know if you get what I'm trying to say.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
and then I was being taught in my CPD training that the fact that a student is not learning doesn't mean we can't meet his or her
Yeah.
needs. There
Yes.
are better ways to manage behaviors.
Yeah.
So that is why there are behavioral policy for different schools. For example, you mentioned one that some schools we use everyone keep quiet on 1, 3, 2, and 1.
Yeah.
You get what I'm trying to say? Some schools are total silence
Yeah.
on 3. 1, 2, 3. Everyone gets silence. Some schools, they've got their behavioral policy like C1, C2,
Yeah.
C3.
Yeah.
Some schools
Mm-hmm.
have got verbal warning,
Yes.
iteration, and then
Yeah.
room removal. You get what I'm
Yeah.
trying to say? Some schools
Yes.
have got the bridge. All these things are what I think every teacher must understand for them
Yeah.
to have a good and a safe working environment for them. Because no school would employ someone who wouldn't understand the school policy, understand the school teaching philosophy, and have a good and exquisite teaching pedagogy.
Mm-hmm.
I was opportune to have a role in my school, but I couldn't attain that role because I was not experienced in that school teaching pedagogy.
Mm.
You get what I'm trying to say?
Yeah.
And the teaching pedagogy, for example, in my school, we don't make use of PowerPoint to teach. Some schools in the UK use PowerPoint. My school
Oh.
used booklets. There's a booklet you used to teach. So all the curriculum, the UK curriculum, had been broken down into booklets. So you
Oh.
you as a teacher must be good enough to break down those booklets not as scripts to the students, but as something you can understand, as if you're having a formal discussion with them for them to understand the subject you are teaching
Yeah,
them.
that's a discussion method.
You get what I'm trying to say? So we
Yeah.
have Socratic method, discussion method, question, and your
Yeah.
formative and summative assessment must be in place. I was talking to a teacher recently and I was telling him, okay, can you tell me I was asking him, can you tell me some of your teaching philosophy you use in your school? And,
Yeah.
he couldn't explain because he has not been exposed to
Yeah.
things like that based on where we were coming from.
Yeah.
In UK, there's something we call scaffolding. You don't just
Yeah.
teach students. There's a place of scaffolding. We have faded scaffolding. We have do now questions. We have retrieval
Mm-hmm.
questions. We have responsive teaching.
Mm-hmm.
You get what I'm trying to say?
Yeah.
Responsive teaching. We have a lot of them. So all these things must be clearly understood before I think anyone who is ready to teach in the UK should start applying for jobs in the UK, because
Mm.
you might just be seeing everyone laughing with you in the school, and yet after the session they tell you, we are sorry, we have to let you go. Not because
Yeah.
you don't have that subject knowledge, but because you can't
Mm.
meet up with the requirement to teach in
Yeah.
that particular school. So there's a clear difference. There's a clear difference, major difference. In Nigeria, textbooks are recommended for students to read. Nothing of a such here.
Yeah.
Students go to school in Nigeria with 13 books, 14
Mm.
exercise books. The bags
Yeah.
are heavy. And most students here, you can't even find one exercise book in their bag. Only
Yeah.
thing they have in their rucksack is their lunch pack and their water bottle.
Yeah.
And does it mean they are not doing well in their GCSE? Many of them are acing their GCSEs
Yeah.
because we just have a difficult mode in Nigeria. I
Mm.
summarized it that way. I'm not
Yeah.
trying to bring my country down. I'm not trying
Yeah.
to bring the Nigerian education system down, but I'm just trying to talk about the pros and cons. Some of the ups and downs we've got in that particular part of the world.
Mm.
And one thing I think I've enjoyed as one of the students that passed through the Nigerian education system is here in the UK, there's a level of how you can be strict to students, and that is why some of the schools' behavioral policy or behavioral management is warm and strict. You are not
Yeah.
meant to be totally strict. You are not meant to
Yes.
be totally warm. But
Yeah.
in Nigeria, no teacher wants to condone any form of
Yeah.
irresponsibility or disruption in
Exactly.
the lesson, and then
Yeah.
it is mandated for you to understand it, irrespective
Yes.
of your
Most.
intellectual capacity. You get what I'm
Yes.
trying to say? So we are subjected to a compulsion to learn,
Mm.
which I think help us in some certain areas, but has also got some of its disadvantages while we are learning. But it's different here.
Yeah.
Here, you don't speak to a child anyhow because there's a safeguarding in place. In
Yes.
every school, you have the designated safeguarding lead, you have the DDSLs. And
Yeah.
even you as a teacher, your responsibility is to also safeguard every student in the school because
Yes.
safeguarding responsibility is bestowed on every members of staff of the school.
Mm.
So in Nigeria, safeguarding is not something we really place priority on, which I think is very important. You get what I'm
Yeah.
trying to say? Many students in Nigeria have been abused physically. Some teachers just speak to some students anyhow. Here, you can't just do that because safeguarding are in place. And it
Mm.
can affect your DBS, which can tamper with your working, life for the entire life you will live in the UK, which you would not want such to happen to you because it will
Yeah.
be very homeless. You get what I'm trying to say? So
Yeah.
I think the gap is there, the difference is there. And
Yeah.
before you venture into it, it is something worth learning about. It is something worth, researching about, speaking to professionals who have been in the game. I think one of the
Yeah.
problems I have got is that I didn't have the opportunity to meet someone who
Mm.
is like an expert and in that
Yeah.
particular profession to speak to put me through, and then that led me to making some mistakes and many
Yeah.
errors
Yeah.
before I could learn on myself to get back on track. I can't say I'm 100% on track now, but at least
Mm.
I think I'm trying and I'm learning every day to be
Yeah.
back on track.
We've really learned a lot, a lot. And I would say about the classroom management and everything about teaching methods, I would say you're very right because fine, a lot of teachers back home will just come here, just like you said, and then we have brilliant teachers back home. That is for a fact. We have
Yeah,
brilliant teachers,
yeah,
but they will just come here. It's not about the subject matter, just like you said. It's not about
yeah.
I have the whole of Bababio in my
In my head, no, nobody wants that here. Nobody
yeah.
wants that. I think one of the problem we have in Nigeria is that we believe anyone can teach. You know,
Mm,
there's no specificity in teacher's license in Nigeria,
yeah.
in teacher
Yeah.
profession. Don't let me say license, teacher
Mm,
profession, because
yeah.
people who haven't gone through the teaching pathway, I mean, people who haven't studied education in
Mm,
school, are seeing teaching as a profession to fall back to if their
yeah.
actual study doesn't work out for them. I
Mm,
hope you get what I'm trying to say. And then
yeah. Yeah.
it's really creating a major problem in Nigerian education system. Because here,
Mm,
I believe before you can teach, you must have gone through PGCE and have
yeah.
1 year training before you
Yeah.
graduate to have your teacher license. And
Yeah.
then after that 1 year training, you have another 2 years training for your ETC,
Mm,
which put you through all these teaching guidelines, the do's
mm,
and don'ts, the teaching philosophy, the teaching
mm,
styles, how
mm,
to manage behaviors,
mhm,
schools policies, maximizing um, um, every resources you've got in the
mm,
school to make sure it meets all students' needs. So
yeah.
I think this is one of the problems we also face in Nigeria, as
Mm,
someone who studied engineering because he couldn't secure a job in
yeah.
engineering field comes to the
Mm,
school and starts teaching math and physics. He hasn't
mhm,
passed through that teaching training. He doesn't know what it looks like. For example,
yes.
when I got here, one of my mentors here told me, Gideon, your teaching is always teacher centered.
Mm,
And teaching in the UK must be student centered because the
yes.
students here determine what happens in school.
Yeah.
In Nigeria, teachers are the at the top of what happens in the school. We are
Mm,
at the upper part of everything. We are the main front. But here it is the students. When the students say they don't want you, they don't want you. It is
Yeah.
what students say that goes here. And so if they are not releasing what the school wants to the students, worthy to be accepted by them,
Mm.
they can't have you. That's one thing about everything here. So for example, my mentor would tell me when you are teaching, you shouldn't talk for more than 10 minutes at a
Mm.
stretch.
Yeah.
So when you talk for 10 minutes, students should be able to, respond to what you've
Want.
taught them in that 10
Yes.
minutes in
Yeah.
15 minutes, each of them.
Mm-hmm.
And so when they are responding, that's your formative assessment. You must be able to
Yes.
assess them formatively based on
Mm-hmm.
what you've taught in 10 minutes.
Yes.
And how do you do it? You have whole class voting, you have coach calling, you have mini
Mm-hmm.
whiteboard, you have
Yeah.
a lot of different things to assess them formatively. And I was thinking, Jesus, can I ever understand this thing? And this is someone who I've taught in Nigeria for over 6 years.
Wow.
Yeah. You know, it's just as if I'm starting to learn from the scratch again.
Yes.
And then now I
That's,
enjoy it
that's how it
myself.
is. That's how it is.
I'm
You just
enjoying
have
it
to learn from the
myself
scratch.
because most times now most times now, just like I told my partner recently, I would even love to teach students with low abilities now, just to be
Mm.
able to, test my ability to teach students of low abilities. I'm trying
Mm.
to say.
Yeah.
So when you
Yeah.
teach them and you use this formative assessment, they reflect back to what you've taught them, and then you can
Mm-hmm.
know maybe to carry on, to move, to progress, or to re-explain what you've just said. You get what I'm trying to say?
Yes.
So
Yes. Yes.
different things, different things. But in Nigeria, you just see a teacher teaching for the entire period. In fact, we write notes and write notes and write
Yeah.
notes,
You will
and
copy from
then
the next class.
and then no formative assessments, no summative
Mm.
assessments. The only thing
Yeah.
is you have tests which you could copy from your partner during the test, or you have exam which you could also copy, or you memorize everything without
Yeah.
understanding it. You can just
And then
memorize without
yeah.
understanding. And then when you have your parents think you are really doing so well in school
Mm.
without knowing you've just memorized and not understood one thing.
Yeah.
And that is
Mm.
why our curriculum is different. Our curriculum
Yeah.
is so different,
Mm.
entirely different,
Mm.
entirely different. But
Mm.
we pray God helps the Nigerian education system and saturate
Amen.
everything with good knowledge to help
Amen.
every student over there.
Amen. Amen. How did you get your teaching job? Like yeah, like I know you're a permanent teacher.
Okay.
So how did you go about? Did you apply through agency or you applied directly to the school?